Welcome to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. I'm Amra, writer, teacher, and storyteller. Pull up a chair and let's dive into stories about writing, life, and lessons learned, sharing wisdom from my armchair to yours. You can find the episode show notes, your free episode handouts, and my how-to guides at amrapaolich.com/podcast. Now it's time to dive in. Hello, welcome to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. So I am here with Tor Roxburgh. She's a fiercely creative Australian multidisciplinary artist who refuses easy categorisation. So she's the author of 17 published works spanning speculative fiction, young adult novels, non-fiction and short stories. And her narrative imagination leaps across genres from science fiction to mystery. Her writing is grounded in deep curiosity about worlds both possible and impossible. She's the author of the epic fantasy saga Promise of Stone series with Book 1, The Light Heart of Stone. And she has just published Book 2, The Rush of Stone. Beyond the Page, Tor paints expressive, narrative-rich visual art and co-designs public sculpture in a creative partnership that has spanned decades. Her work has been exhibited both in Australia and internationally, from gallery walls to urban spaces. And she also co-hosts the technology and innovation podcast, OK Smartass, with Patrick Bonello, where she talks all things tech with humour, insight and fearless questioning. So she's not just a creator, she's an independent maker who builds her art on her own terms, whether that's through self-publishing, studio practice or curious conversations about the future tech and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Amra.
Thank you. So we were talking earlier and I was saying you're a really interesting person to interview because you have done so much. So you, in terms of... we'll start a little bit with the writing maybe, but like you started with traditional publishing and you published all these young adult novels and had a very successful career. I think you were actually living off your writing.
I was.
Yeah, which is so rare.
Look, romance has always been a genre where you can make money.
Yes.
And I wrote 12 teenage romances for a series called Dolly Fiction.
I used to read those. Oh my gosh, that's my youth. That's my adolescence. I might have even read some of your books.
Possibly. So what happened was I was working in a women's refuge. I was a general coordinator helping women who are escaping domestic violence and incest. And that was my first book. I wrote a kind of a self-help book, compiling all the things you would have learnt if you went into a refuge. So for those people who didn't go into refuge. And I really loved writing. Before I did that. And my publisher said, we're starting a series of women's romance and teen romance. The women's romance was Women's Weekly. The teen romance was Dolly Fiction. And I thought, I can't write women's romance because I've just seen the kind of brutal side of women's romance.
Certain jobs change your perspective. Like me, I used to love teacher-student romance stories. And now that I'm a teacher, I am repulsed. As soon as there is a hint of something between a teacher and a student, I'm like, oh, get away.
Yeah. So like that. But I thought, look, I can write teen romance because relationships when you're a teenager, they're everything, aren't they?
They are. Like you never feel the way that you feel as an adolescent, like the I don't know, the bright colour and the intensity.
And the intensity of the feelings.
Yes.
You know? So I did that and that was lots of fun, and it supported the family and the children when they were young, which is amazing.
It really is. Like now, especially because even I was reading an article about the heydays. There was this very short period of time, probably when you were writing, when there were so many bookstores, the publishing industry was huge. People were actually able to make a living off their writing, and then things changed.
Yeah. Well, with change comes, huge opportunity. I think if you had grabbed that change at the right moment, you could then be making lots of money publishing independently.
Yes.
It's a little more challenging now, but still it's wonderful really to not have so many gatekeepers.
It is, because we're both doing that. Like that's what you're doing with your series. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm finding so much joy in it, in all those different parts that we're doing, all the different hats that we're wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you found that whole process?
Exciting, stretching your skills. And I don't mind, I find business interesting. So I think if you're a writer that really abhors business, then it'd be awful. Yeah, I find it very interesting. What I find difficult is swapping between. Like I can write all day, but I can't do writing in the morning and business in the afternoon. And I still haven't worked out how to manage that transition to the different parts of my brain.
Yeah, I know it is kind of tiring. All of those different things. But we were talking earlier, so maybe we should swing back to that discussion about AI and how there are opportunities for us, both as writers and as independent authors and business people, in terms of using AI to help streamline a lot of things. So I've been using it a lot for marketing. Have you been doing the same?
I've definitely been using it for marketing. I've been using it as a thought partner, which is a way I like to describe it. And I usually do my prompts by saying, I don't want you to come up with plot ideas. I don't want you to come up with character ideas. Well, recently I have a mythical creature, and I was thinking to give it a point of view. And then I thought, well, it can't just sound like a person.
Yes.
But I also don't want it to sound like a cliched mythical creature.
Yes, with the British accent and the formal speaking of, the prophecies sort of thing.
So I had a long, long chat. What would the world feel like? What would I feel like? Would I feel like an I?
Yeah, and it's sort of replacing, because we used to be in a writing group together.
Yeah.
Then the writing group got too successful.
They're all too
big, too many people who are like, their careers have progressed and they're like, a good day. But also something about, as our life speeds up, we know the value of writing groups, but it does become sort of difficult to prioritize them. I mean, I'm going to say something controversial now, but like, we know the value of critiquing and getting critiqued. We also get to the point where it's like, well, I don't want to be spending time critiquing other people's work when I really need to move forward with my own writing. And so for us, using AI is like using that hive mind that we used to get the benefit from, where we would do that brainstorming, we would do that thinking. Because some things that I've used it for is, for one of the books in my series set in a private school. So I'm like, write a manifesto, a history, create a logo. So, all these things are uniform. All these things that I could do myself, absolutely. But it would take me days to create this. And I'm only going to use like 3 sentences of like describing the uniform, or a couple of sentences of setting the tone of what this school is like, and then a few sentences of describing the buildings. But I need to do that world building and know what it is. And so it's just kind of jump starting a lot of things in that way.
Yeah, it's fun. And also when I meet with other writers now at this point in my career, I want to socialize with them.
Yes. And just sort of share the lessons.
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying? What's going on? And just having those moments where we're just having a conversation and we're learning through it.
Yeah.
Or just enjoying the moment, really.
And also, when I think back to when I started writing, if you say in one of my books, I wanted to have a police officer, and I don't know anything about the police, I would have had to get on the phone and ring someone and convince them to talk to me. And, I would have had to say things like I'm published by, Greenhouse Publications. And like, it was really, really time consuming and difficult. But then came along the internet and you could get that information, and it was a bit static, but you could get it. And now you can say to Claude or ChatGPT, like, I want a probationary constable for this purpose. Have I got the purpose right? And actually, maybe I want someone who's maybe a firefighter would be better. And you can enter into that dialogue, it's not going to take you weeks to find it out.
No. And also, like, a lot of the times when I do the brainstorming, like, for example, this latest book that I'm working on, which is book 5, I was like, I need to start plotting from now on. And so I used ChatGPT to do the plotting. But of course, I'm veering off. I'm not following that plotting. But sometimes just being able to put the ideas in where it's like, help me brainstorm, how would they get out of this situation, or how would they do this? And then it gives you all these possibilities. And then you're sort of thinking through and going, okay, which one would work and how do I build that in? And like that part of it is really, really helpful where, you know, I would try and have conversations with people. I'd harass my husband to, you know, talk to me. Like, does this make sense? Does this make sense? I'm going to do this. And then I remember even like being like a crazy woman where you sort of have these conversations by yourself, where you're sitting in the corner going, oh yes, that will, you know, and you're like a bit loony. Yeah. Whereas this way, you're actually having that moment and processing it all. And then you're still leaving it in your subconscious and things are coming out. But I find it really, really helpful.
Yes. And look, I am a very tech positive.
You are, because of your podcast,
person,
which we're going to get to also.
And I think, you know, we have to acknowledge that the writing community and the world is really split about this. And there are people who are, well, not violently, but passionately opposed. Not.
I'm going to make a statement here and you tell me whether you agree with this or not. In your experience, is it that those authors who are traditionally published that are more opposed, whereas those authors who are independently published are a little bit more open?
I don't know. I haven't asked enough people. Mainly the people I've seen who are opposed are traditionally published or already quite successful. And look, I can't speculate why. Change is very difficult. Change in an industry is alarming.
Yeah. And I mean, I have seen it from both sides, to be honest, because even in the independently, those of us who are independently published and in the Facebook groups that we're in, there has been a lot of vitriol.
Yes.
And a lot of, but we are also going to confess that we use it to help us with the writing process. Yeah. So I'll go first and make my declaration. Okay. So I use Pro Writing Aid as the editing software, which also has AI suggestions. Some of them are atrocious, but it helps pick up a lot of the little grammar rules that just never stick in my head. I also use Pseudo-Write. So Pseudo-Write is AI-powered software where it's got all these different modes that you can do. So it's got modes where you can do like rewrite, where you put something in and it rewrites it for you. You can put it, do descriptive, where it adds descriptive detail. And then it's got things like, you know, with more internal conflict, etc. Now, what I've found is the rewrite is the one that I use the most, because what it does is it just kind of cleans up things and just, you know, how we do those repetitive motions or like verbs. We don't use the good enough verb. Yes.
He nodded, she nodded.
That's right. You just keep kind of doing the same things. But I do use the descriptive mode. It's not good to use it like just as it is, because it really like adds that purple prose. But I find it really helpful where I'm like, okay, I'm going to set something in a hospital. Again, I can spend an hour preparing that scene and thinking about what sounds would you hear, what would it smell like, how do I describe it without saying it's a hospital, you know, all of those, that sensory imagery and kind of weaving it into the action together with all the other things. Or I could pop it into Pseudo-Write and it will come up with a rewrite, and then I will take a few sentences here and there and I'll just insert them in my prose and zhuzh it up. Just zhuzh it up. What about yourself?
I'm doing a bit the reverse. So I'm not yet publishing anything that I've been collaborating with AI, but I will in the future. And I'll probably declare that in the front.
Yeah, I need to start declaring, because the first 3 books that I wrote were pre-AI, and it was just the Pro Writing Aid as their kind of, but then human eye. But yeah, these ones I'm going to have to start declaring.
So I've been playing around, and how I've been playing around is I've been writing my own outline, characters, and then getting down to the scene, and I'll tell, again, Pseudo-Write what I want to be in the scene, and then I'll give it the first pass. And what I've found is I then completely rewrite it with my writing, but it makes me much faster and much more productive because I'm not struggling to think, now 3 people are walking into the room.
Yes. It's all those logistics.
Logistics?
Yeah.
I've been writing for 40 years or something professionally. Logistics, moving groups of people, not forgetting, leaving people kind of invisible, floating,
Yes.
not doing anything. I still find that really hard.
Yeah. We've all got our little things like, for me, it's description.
Yeah.
I like to just move the scene along.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, there needs to be some description. What are they wearing? If they're putting their hand through their hair, can we add the color maybe? Like you don't need to have them looking in the mirror and my green eyes and, like it's all of that sort of stuff. And that's something that I used to really have to go back and spend time on a draft. So I would do one draft where it's laying down the story, one draft going through and adding the description and the plot points and the, building the layers. And then I would have to do another one where I would go back and play with the writing and kind of go, well, can I add a simile? Can I add a metaphor? Can I zhuzh it up in that way? And so it would be a lot of work to do all that.
The criticism is what's the point of writing if you're not doing it all yourself? So what do you think about that?
I think that, like you, I have been writing for long enough and I am completely confident in my writing ability, my ability to tell a good story, and in having the skills required for that. I'm a pretty damn good teacher about it too. So I can do it all, but I want to speed up. Want to move. I've got so many stories I want to tell, and I feel the time. I feel, like I'm 48 years old and I love being 48 years old, but I'm also aware of the fact that there's less time in front than there is behind me, that writing is my passion, my joy, my everything. It is my legacy. And I just want to speed up and do the stories that I want to tell. And I also just want to use the technology that we've got. When we had pen writing and then typewriters came in, everyone was like, oh, scandalous, it's going to ruin writing. Then we had computers and everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's going to ruin writing. And now we've got AI, that's going to ruin writing. No, it's not. No, it's not. Everything that I've got, I still have because I am a reader and love the written word and, will always continue to feed that part of my brain. One of the conversations I had with my daughter that was interesting where she was talking about cognitive decline in terms of using AI and that people who are using it the way that their thoughts and they're getting that cognitive decline. I mean, I won't ever use it where I will get it to do everything for me. Like at the end of the day, we're writers. We love writing. We love creating worlds and creating stories. For us, it's not interesting to go, this is the name of my character. They are a doctor. There is a scandal in the hospital. Now write it for me. For us, the joy is that creation, but using it as a creative partner, using it to allocate and delegate some of the heavy lifting, using it for the brainstorm, coming up with the names of things.
The names of things, character names.
Yes.
I've always hated doing
my gosh.
Flicking through old directories and
And then the other thing is, you're writing fantasy, so for you it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm writing, contemporary, and I'm like, I want it to be a reflection of Australian society, and that I have characters of all, backgrounds and so, I'm having to research all these different names. And I mean, even I use Scrivener to keep track of all my writing and my character names and all of that. So we're already using tools that might not be AI based, but they are tools to help organization.
And you can use it really creatively. Like, I wanted a word that was not Indigenous and was not native because they're so loaded, those words. I'm vaguely working in a European Anglo-Celtic style, even though it's epic fantasy and totally made up. And I said to Claude, tell me, in the 10th century, what the word native would have been in Ireland, what would it have been in Scotland, what was it in England. I looked at all of those words, couldn't pronounce the Scottish or and I said, look, if that, Gaelic word had crossed into England and then evolved with language over the next 300 years, what would it be now? Now, obviously, that's not a factual answer, but it gave me a really interesting word, and it was really a very creative exercise. So it just depends how you use it, really, I think.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
And I think you use it as a tool, but also, as I said, we will be declaring.
Yeah.
So, with these novels moving forward, I will be declaring that, I use pro-writing aid for the editing, and that I use pseudo-writing, to expand and stuff. And I think that is the ethical thing to do.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away, because I know that the stories I'm writing, I'm the only one that can write those stories. I'm the only one that can come up with, that world, that character, with what I'm trying to do with it to contribute, to the world. Because, as creators, we always have that big lofty visions. What's your lofty vision with your fantasy books?
Oh, are you talking about the end results or what I'm trying to say? Or...
What are you trying to say? Well, tell us a little bit about the worlds and what they are.
Look, I'm a bit of a dreamer, a bit of a what-if person, which I suppose all writers are. Basically, I was driving from Melbourne to Balan, and I was entering Bacchus Marsh. And for those who don't know it, you come over a hill and you look down into
a hill. Yes.
Very fertile market garden landscape, particularly, 15 years ago. It's a bit more developed now. And there were, this particular day, there were people in the field harvesting, bent over the crops, hand harvesting vegetables. And I thought, it looks really magical. Obviously, that's disguising the complexities of what's really going on, the labour issues and all of that. But I thought, what if it was even more magical? What if humans could be companions to plants and animals in the same way that you have companion planting? So if a human had this talent, maybe you'd have the talent and just with your presence, rice could grow. Yeah. So I like that idea, and it really captured me. And then because of the personality I have, I thought, well, it looks really magical, it looks really perfect, but obviously it isn't. There's something rotten beneath all of this. And what if those companionships started to fail? And so the Light Heart of Stone is all about there's failing, the companionships are failing, and the efforts of various characters to solve that problem, some of them diabolically and some of them in a more ethical way. And then the rush of stone is when you think you've solved the problem, it's actually going to be more complicated than you thought it was going to be.
Because I believe it's a trilogy.
It is a trilogy.
That's right. We've got to build to the third one.
So yeah, I'm writing the third one. Of every writer, I'm also thinking about, well, if only I was writing the series that I want to write after I finish this one.
Well, that's the thing. I'm starting this series, and I'm like, I've got the first 6 books planned, and I actually want to continue it after 6 books, because I'm like, it's set in the 1990s, and she's actually born in the same year as me.
Oh.
And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if it's like following her whole life and the changes and all the things that happen? Because the series is kind of now something that's going on in Australia, like showcasing a scandal, showcasing human rights violations or something happening. So I've got like a whole bunch of ideas planned for it. But then I'm like, well, she has a mentor who's a war correspondent. Wouldn't that be great to do a series? Oh, and then she meets this police officer along the way. Wouldn't that be interesting? So, I'm just like, I want to, because we want to challenge ourselves.
The appetite. And then you get down to that issue of productivity.
Yes.
Like I'm slow. I write slowly. I'm 65. I mean, I want to write 20 more books. I have to pick up the pace, really.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. Like I have to juggle writing with, working 4 days as a teacher. And I feel quite happy with myself that I have done that. But these ideas are just kind of, And then I get like random ideas of things I want to do or things that I've started. And then I'm like, well, I can't really, how many things can I start? But there are so many because there's something about the joy now of no gatekeepers and just following your muse.
Yeah.
Following your creativity.
Yeah. And actually having more contact with your readers. So when I was traditionally published, I didn't really meet anyone who read my books.
Mm-hmm.
But of necessity, because you've got to hustle a little bit if you're an indie publisher, I get to meet people who read my books.
Yes.
And that's a really exciting experience.
And also, like, we were talking about the business side and the marketing side. And, when I started doing this, because for me initially it was getting rights back to books that were traditionally published and then republishing and kind of having that confidence. Well, I know that they're good. I know. And so I had to learn that whole marketing because traditional publishing, I kind of do everything for you, whereas now we have to do everything for ourselves. And it's a lot of new skills.
Yeah.
But this is also where the AI comes in handy in terms of, helping to write captions for social media posts, helping brainstorm content and things that you can create and things that you can put out there and creating book reels and, just there's a lot of things like that that are really time consuming, but then once it sort of helps you come up with all these assets and even, using Canva, there's a lot more AI technology now where it can do, posts.
Yes.
Where you can like turbocharge them when you use an Excel spreadsheet and it creates different content. Have you experienced that?
I haven't used Canva because I use a Corel Draw, which is a different graphics program. And I can just do it. I don't have enough skill to do it well, but I can manage to put together the things I need to put together. I'm struggling at the moment because I'm trying to make a new map for book 2 because I realized the map I'd made was not really the map that I was concerned with. For why I did that, sometimes
we have to get out of our system.
and I'm pushing up against the limits of my skills at the moment, but it's kind of fun, you need a break from writing and you can go tinker with the graphics program.
And that's the thing, so many new skills, like, so many new packages that we're trying, so much new tech. And so this is something that sort of led you, well, I don't know, how did your podcast come about and the tech side of it?
I think it was maybe at the end of COVID, my dear friend Patrick Benello said, you like science and tech, we should do a podcast. And I thought, I was in a period of saying yes, indeed, to everything at the time. So it's a news-based podcast. We collect what's going on in the news with science and tech, and then we chat about it. And we have various things that we're particularly interested. So I've always been interested in reproductive technology. So we had, for example, one episode where we talk a lot about artificial wombs, where the experiments are going with that at the moment. I think last I looked, they were able to keep a lamb fetus in an artificial womb for a few days, a week.
Did they move on since Dolly?
Yeah.
Dolly the sheep.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah. And Patrick's got his things he likes talking about. And so we'd look for articles that we had shared interest in. And then we moved on to just doing episodes occasionally. Recently, we did 3 episodes about technology and aged care. And we interviewed people from age 90 to 84 about what sort of tech and they wanted in their aged care. And we're now talking about maybe combining a science fiction book review, linking it to actual science that's happening at the moment. We haven't quite nutted that out, but that's the next iteration. And it's fun to have that vehicle of OK Smart Ass because we can reinterpret it how we want.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I did a general Amra's armchair anecdotes because I wasn't sure what I wanted. I started out just talking about writing stuff, and now it's like talking to creative people, but also just talking to people about things that I think are interesting and that should be talked about.
Beautiful.
And so, yeah, like there is a freedom. We were talking about this earlier, this freedom of creativity and not holding ourselves back.
Well, we're talking about age, weren't we?
We were. We are. We are in the matriarch. And, crone phase and that phase.
Well, I don't know that you're quite there yet.
Hey, I'm counting my days. I'm looking forward to that entry point.
Yes, I'm thinking a lot about to redefine my relationship to failure. I want, people say fail forward and failure is cool, and neither of those quite work for me. Failure is still painful, but I want it to translate into more creativity instead of withdrawal.
Yes.
From the enterprise. Yeah.
Well, for me, I'm finding that for me, the failure is to be too scared to even try, because I would stop myself. And I remember having moments of bitterness where I'd be like, I am so much more talented than so-and-so. And look at them coming up with this and doing that, putting themselves out there. How dare they? And now I've entered this era of my life where I'm honestly shameless. I don't experience shame as a concept anymore. It's joyous. It is so joyous. I have moments sometimes, how you do certain things or you say certain things and afterwards you reflect on like a facial expression or like, did I...
Rumination.
Yeah. Did I hit something or do I need to explain or do I need to apologize? I don't even do that anymore. I had a moment the other night where I kind of got into, because I get a little bit like hyper, and I was sharing some stories and I'm like, I was trying to make a point, but that might have landed wrong. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm not going to explain myself, because either people I'm talking to know who I am and they're like, yeah, that's Amra. That's where she's at. Or they're going to judge me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I like being hated and I'm doing something right.
That's interesting. I think in good, healthy relationships, there should be a lot of room for those things to not be important. Looking the wrong way, saying slightly the wrong thing. And as women, we can get completely sort of constrained by all of that.
Yes.
And I don't want to be constrained by all of that.
No, just like when I think about all the time I wasted second guessing and agonizing and feeling shame. And even for me, like as a child, I was sexually abused. So there was a lot of shame associated with that. That's golden shame of being complicit in some way. And so there's been a lot of sort of shedding of those things, and shedding those skins, and writing really helped. And my memoir writing really helped, with those memories of being a child and the things that happened. And I don't want to hold that space anymore. And I don't want others to hold it either. Like, there are certain things that I won't ever sort of make, well, unless I really hate them, then I will, like in terms of, saying things incorrectly or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just not holding that, and just, just kind of going, what's important? Yeah. And people, if they want to misunderstand you, they will do it. You don't need to worry about it. They will take whatever they want to take. And so I'm just finding that freedom. And so, to go back to failure, I'm just sort of putting everything out there, and just, it works, it doesn't work, I enjoy it. My test now is, am I enjoying it? Is it contributing to my life, as opposed to metrics and, like this podcast, listener numbers and audience and stuff. I mean, having said that, it is growing, because the more you do something, the more it happens. But it's just actually the joy of these conversations and learning from people that I talk to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy to shake off those old habits. And yet we live in a world now where the possibility of not offending anyone is completely so ridiculous a concept that in a way you do have to let go of that.
Well, yeah, even content warnings and even like writing about certain things.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not going to put any content warnings in my book.
I do. I typed.
But your subject matter is like quite.
Well, I just sort of thought it's a book about genocide.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But then, because I'd written my young adult novels before all of this, like the first one, it was traditionally published as The Good Daughter, and then I continued the series, and there was this content warnings popping up, and it was an issue, and it was like, how do you do it? What do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm writing young adult stuff, but there's also this stuff. So I've done it in the way that there's a QR code that takes people to a website, and on that website I list, which AI helps me with, by the way. I list, the themes, and I do it because I personally don't want content warnings. I don't want anything. I don't want to know. I mean, I can deal with very dark themes. I write dark themes. I'm interested in dark themes. And so I just want to read, and I don't want to know. I just want that surprise of reading. But if there are people out there who really feel strongly that they need to know certain things, they can, scan the QR code, go to the website and get the information. But it is a spoiler. It does count as a spoiler, because by the time you list all of the possible things, it's basically saying there will be this, there will be that, there will be this, and in fiction, I do think that it is a spoiler.
So I think there's probably no right or wrong answer, but I like the way you handled that with the QR code. I thought that was a really good way to do it, because it's not then in someone's face if they don't want to know.
Yes.
They can just jump in and read.
Yeah. And there's also, like, on the imprint page, go to this website and then the link. Yeah, like it is. Yeah, I'm playing it on both. I personally don't want them. I don't look at them. I don't care. I think it came about more for those dark romance where they really have. And to be honest, in that dark romance, what seems to me is that the content warnings actually act as a list of tropes that people are interested in and want to read. So I actually sort of think, I don't know that it's really relevant for anything else, but I've now gotten into the habit, and I'm like, well, for consistency's sake, I will continue the practice. Because I've already got that page on the website, and all I'm doing is I'm just adding the book and just listing things, and so again, it's a spoiler, because if someone goes to it and they haven't read one of my other books, then they'll be like, oh, there's those themes in there. Well, what can you do? I'm not going to do a separate page for every book. I need to keep it simple and so there's a lot of things to think about like that. But you've had a very rich creative life, because you're also an artist.
Thank you. But that I suppose was somewhat accidental. So my partner is a sculptor and properly trained. I'm not trained. I'm what's actually now called an outsider artist.
Oh,
quite nice.
Well,
outsider artists as well.
Oh, because you haven't been trained in it.
I haven't been trained.
Okay.
So my partner and I ran a public sculpture business together. And necessarily, I should preface that by saying that public sculpture is usually awarded by tender now. Occasionally, people will be invited directly to make a work, but usually it's a government or competitive tender. And I was doing all the tender writing and he was doing the designing. But because I'm a busybody and have a lot of opinions, I would start saying, why don't you try doing this? And anyway, I got involved in the design aspects, and he also taught me a lot about, he'd say things like, well, that's a great idea, but it can't be made. So I started to learn from him, and that sort of barrier that between the non-artist and the artist started to become transparent for me. And then when my father died, I had a lot of emotions about it. And I thought, I can't write this because it would take me, 500,000 words to express it, but maybe I can paint some of it. And that intensity of emotion seemed to unlock something inside me, because I was always one of those people who would have said, I can't draw with talent. But that unlocking, which was really an emotional process, meant that I suddenly could. It was weird.
Do you think that we put barriers on ourselves?
Yeah.
And that sometimes it's just about us giving ourselves permission?
I mean, I remember being told as a schoolgirl, and probably lots of people have told things like this, you're not very good at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not true. I could also say, I'm not very good at spelling, and that's true. I'm not very good at spelling. And some more old-fashioned views would be, oh, well, you can't be a writer.
Yes.
Well, obviously you can be a writer, and even more with technological assistance.
Well, like people who
Yeah.
suffer from dyslexia,
Yeah.
but they want to be writers, and it is, their internal. Does that mean that they shouldn't just because their brain is wired a little bit differently?
Yeah. So it's the concept that matters. And you learn that that's the case with visual art also. And you think of those famous artists who actually don't touch the material at all. They have the idea and they have assistants who make the work. So there's all sorts of possibilities for being creative.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, like that whole thing of idea versus execution, because everyone can have an idea. And to go back to our earlier discussion about AI, it doesn't matter. You have the idea, but it's the execution that is only you. Yeah.
I mean, I think execution is part of the idea, I would argue. Because if I decide that I'm going to paint a painting of flowers, that's kind of meaningless. I have to have a much more complete vision than that. If I use some technological assistance to do that, it's got to be a more complete vision of mine to result in something that's worth looking at, I think, anyway.
Yeah, but like when we look at your life, you have just followed where things lead you.
Yeah.
So where are you being led right now?
Both into art and into writing. And writing was not so much just following where life led me. There was an impetus for it. My mother, it was her greatest dream to be a published writer, and she didn't make it. But I think it lodged in my mind that becoming a writer was the highest calling.
Yes.
So when the opportunities arrived in the form of me working in the refuge, having the subject material, having the motivation and the impetus, then I also had this vision that being a writer is the greatest thing you can do in the world.
Well, it kind of is. Like, how many conversations have we had with people and they're like, I want to, because everything else, like even in terms of art and being an artist, there's a quicker way. I mean, obviously, this still requires a lot of practice, a lot of dedication. Like to write a novel, or like, a book.
There's a lot of work.
There's a lot more work as opposed to one canvas and executing that canvas and kind of, building the skills to be able to do that. And so it's that time that takes the most. I think that's why we're also drawn to AI, because
time.
Time.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier about, you've kind of taken breaks from writing and then gone back.
Yes. Well, that ties in with what we're talking about failure. So I wrote a pregnancy book collaborating with my niece who did some of the research, and it was not as successful as my hopes and dreams wanted it to be. This was when I was in my, I suppose, mid-30s. And it coincided with me having this experience that when I walked into bookshops, instead of feeling the joy of being in a bookshop, I'd think audition. And I didn't want to be that person. I'd met a lot of bitter writers. I didn't want to be that. I thought, step away. And so I stopped. And that's when I got involved in the public art for 12 years or so. Then I came back, writing again. Again, feeling of not meeting my own expectations, and stepped back for another decade, back to it again. And as I was saying to you earlier, I'm 65. If I step away for another decade, I'm saying I'm giving up. So I'm not going to do that. Now I'm going to push through whatever that part of me is that gives up when I feel like it's failing. So anyway, deep psychology from
No, I can really relate, because I, had the traditional publishing success story, but then didn't sell enough to continue the series and with that publisher, and then, did it and which actually ended up being the most best-selling thing, the one with Demet, the growing up Muslim in Australia.
That's right.
Yeah, which is still, taught in schools and bought by schools, and I still earn royalties on it, which is fascinating. And so I too had to redefine what is success for me. Working as a teacher, I have seen so many incredibly creative people give up that part of themselves, give it up, and just, teaching takes everything from them. And so for me, it was, I know that if I don't write, I'm not okay. I'm not okay psychologically. I'm not okay in any facet of my life. So writing is an absolute necessity. And so I had to redefine my success and make it about longevity, not make it about the money, not make it about the audience or am I in bookshops or, all of these other things. How many sales have I made? How much money have I made? I just had to redefine it in terms of, am I doing it? Am I still doing it? And I am.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it. I will continue doing it. And so for me, it's fascinating because like what's happening now is I enjoy getting reports of sales and I enjoy getting, royalties in my bank account. They're not huge, but there is a little drip feed there. But honestly, it's the readers. That is the real thing.
Yeah.
Like those moments when people message me and they're like, oh my God, this book. And that is the stuff. But even that, to be honest, while enjoyable, is nothing compared to the high of the writing.
Yeah, it's the expression, isn't it?
Yes.
Like I find that with my writing, and I probably find it even more so with the visual art. I mean, I just really enjoy it. Yeah. And when the writing works.
Yeah. Like I'm at the point now in this novel, it's the rough draft. I made a goal 1,000 words a day. I was like, every day. And then it's just accelerated where it's like, yesterday and today I'm just like, getting words down, like, oh, this is happening. Oh, yes. And this is, and so like just that excitement and that where I can see the scenes and I can see, and I just need to get them down. And that high, like even yesterday, I was getting ready for bed and I just sat there and I was like, I feel happy. I really feel happy. I just feel joy. And I'm like, why am I feeling just this pure joy? Creation. It is that creating part.
And when you're deep in it, you wake up like you dream of it and you wake up with it. And when you're writing, it's that flow state that's incredibly enjoyable.
Yes.
It really is a privilege to be able to have a creative life. And when you think of people, so many people stopping when it doesn't quite work in the beginning, what a tragedy.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I was traditionally published, I used to say, I have met many more talented people than me along the way.
Yeah.
I just kind of kept going like that little, what is it? The tortoise in the hare?
Yeah.
Just kind of, you keep plodding along and is my superpower. I just kind of keep going even when no one else is showing up. I'm the one showing up.
That's great.
But yeah, it's just about that longevity. It's like, this is what I will be doing until the day I die. And I don't know, like whatever time I've got in my life, when I was working 5 days a week, when I had my daughter and she was really small and it was a real struggle. Now I've got a little bit more space. So it's just that side of it. And, are you making that transition within yourself too?
Yeah. And when you talk about that, it just reminded me about how I view family support. I've heard various writers say, oh, it's so upsetting. My partner's never read my book or my children have never read my book. For me, children and partners reading books, that's not what support is about. Support is when I say, I have to go and do my writing. And they say, yeah, that's right. And the fact that that year I might earn nothing or be in the red, no one says you shouldn't be writing. Everyone says, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've trained my husband and my daughter because they are the same, where it's like my daughter is beautiful. Like, I need to get my words down. She's like, okay. And so she just occupies herself. We were waiting to do something. And my husband also, in terms of, like even I was talking earlier, I went to the Indie Capstone conference that Craig Martell ran. He's a successful fantasy author. He runs this group, 20 books to 50K, which is all about, you need at least 20 books to try and earn a living from your writing. And, as he said, the economics have changed now, but it still holds true. You need a certain backlist. Yeah. And, that was at a loss. That was money I spent to go over there, to stay for one night, to, attend the conference, which was very cost effective. That wasn't the expensive part. But those moments of transformation. It's that time that you're taking out, that you're focusing on yourself. And so what I got out of it was the writing spreads. So I have used these in the past, but he was doing, workshops. He's like, okay, now 10 minutes, now 10 minutes, now 10 minutes. I ended up writing 3,500 words in a day. I mean, it was also because it was a protected environment where it's like I wasn't doing anything else. But now I'm like, I've got 10 minutes. I'll write. I've got 10 minutes. And look, I always had to do that. But you kind of always have this thing sometimes in your head where you're like, the perfect conditions.
Yeah, I need 2.5 hours.
Yes. Yes. And so I'm learning to let go of all of those things in terms of how and when, and just making sure to do it, just making sure to be consistent. Because like you, I've struggled with I'm either doing the marketing or I'm doing the writing. I need to do both.
Yeah.
You need to do both consistently.
What's your balance now? How are you handling that? Are you doing different days or are you breaking up the day?
At the moment, it's a little bit odd because it's like I'm trying to schedule posts and schedule things in terms of marketing, and I'm kind of more just wanting to retreat into the writing. And I find myself that that's what happens when I'm doing the writing. But there are things like I'm starting to experiment with Facebook ads and those sort of things. You just set it up and you let it go. And then I used to, but I got out of the habit. You'd apply for all these promos. So it would be one day a month, sitting down and applying for all these promos. So that's the thing. I need to bring back routines. I had this social media scheduler, which I loved, but now it's too expensive. All of my social media posts organized on repeat. And it was great because all my backlist books were coming into prominence. And even growing up in Muslim Australia, which had disappeared for a while, started getting bookings again where libraries would contact me and stuff. So I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah.
And very worthwhile, but I haven't quite been able to replicate that yet. Because I'm like now using Meta Scheduler and it doesn't have that repeat function, and it's like, but I do need to sort of do some work. So I don't know, I do need to do some thinking, but like it does have to be routines where it's like, writing every day, or, sometimes writing every day is not a viable thing, but writing every week a certain amount of words we can do. And if we set it as a very reasonable goal, like 2,000 words a week, we can do that. But yeah, I have to set up those routines also in terms of the marketing. But some of the stuff is just you set it up and you leave it and then it just goes. And then, with Facebook ads, it's setting it to a certain date because you need to test it anyway. You can't, what I used to do again, that's a failure. I'll turn off the ad. And then the last one I just left and it dropped per click, like the cents per click. And I went, this is what they're talking about. That it has to go through a cycle and then it has to sort of find the audience and then, so it's those sort of things that are that learning part, but also just setting up the schedules. Yeah, so that's something I'm going to be working on next year.
I guess one of the challenges is there's so many avenues that you could be engaging in: TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook ads, Amazon ads.
Yes.
Etsy now people are talking about.
Oh, okay, it's coming back. That was like Pinterest. I was doing Pinterest too.
Pinterest,
Done.
Reddit, which AI keeps telling me my readers naturally are on Reddit. But
Yes.
I'm not.
Yeah, I started the Substack journey. Yeah, because I put all my podcast episodes on there.
Yeah.
And also because I keep writing articles and every once in a while they get picked up and then they don't get picked up.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I just want to publish these articles. I'm like, they're not doing anything sitting there. If I'm not going to get paid for them, that's fine. At least that's an avenue of readership. Because I just want to release. I just want to have an idea. I want to follow it through and then I want to release it out to the world. And either it will find an audience or it won't. But I just find the more I follow through on the ideas, the more creative I get.
That's good.
Because it's like cleaning out and starting again. Yeah. What do you see next year for you?
Look, I really want to do more Instagram and TikTok, which I keep saying to myself, oh, I'm ready to do it. I know what I want to do. This is going to be really great. In fact, it might even be fun. I haven't done it yet.
You know what might help you? This is what helped me.
Yeah.
Because, you get self-conscious about being on camera and talking to people. And so I said to myself, people need to see more 48-year-old women in real life on social media. And so I'm like, it's not about me anymore. It's about the world seeing what a 48-year-old face looks like and what we sound like and what we feel like. And so I'm like, that's it, just out there. Because, at this time, the anti-aging, the plastic surgery, the altering, and I have had a nose job. I can't speak.
Really?
Yeah. I had a nose job when I was 17 because I had a heart operation and I have a scar dissecting my chest. And when I have x-rays, they're like, oh, you've had something done because my ribs were cut open. Yeah. And so I had a heart murmur that had to be repaired. I was absolutely just horrified by, having this scar and people looking at this scar and not being able to wear the things people wore. And I did have a big nose. Big noses are in my family.
Yeah.
Big nose
I
people.
love a big nose.
I'm obsessed with small nose.
Really?
Yeah. I've always been obsessed with small noses. And so I couldn't deal with my big nose. I put all of my body dysmorphia about my scar onto my nose.
Yeah.
And I had the plastic surgery when I was 17. And like a lot of young people, did not really understand the surgery parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being in the hospital and having the black eyes and having an IV drip and being in agonizing pain and going, where's my glamour story? And then expecting that I would have a new life. Because I did my hair differently and I was like, I'll do a makeover.
It's a very good nose.
Yeah, it is a good nose.
Yeah.
It is. You know what the fascinating part of this whole story is?
No.
My daughter has a nose that looks like this nose.
Wow.
I don't know.
Where's it come from?
She is a DNA thief and she has stolen all the good DNA and she made a deal in utero with someone.
With your nose.
And she got this beautiful, and people they looked at, even when I look at photos, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are, mine's more scoopy.
Yeah.
But it's got the same.
And people probably say things like,
she's
got the same nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we also share scars. You can't show yours without getting undressed, but I've got massive scars because when I was, can the camera see it? I was 4 years old, I was standing in front of the stove and I knocked a pot of boiling water over myself.
How did that affect your life?
Well, look, it was weirdly fine. My parents visited me in hospital every day. They treated me very well in children's. I've got a slice off my inner thigh and a slice off my ass because I had
That's what you want. You want the ass gone. Take more off.
Only one side though, because I had to have 2 skin grafts. Yeah. And I like my scars.
Yes.
They've always felt like, I guess like people like their tattoos, I like my scars.
Yeah, I'm at the point now where I like them, I'm used to them, but I do find myself with my daughter, mine are here, so it's there, all the way down. Yeah. And so I find myself touching her there, going, oh, this is what it feels like not to have a scar. Because also it changes, it's like thin and then it's thick, and I'm like, the bloody surgeon didn't know how to cut the skin nicely, and then they, put it together so it changes. It's very much, and then there's a crooked bit where I'm like, he lost got a bit tired, did he? Yeah. When he was cutting and he had to course correct. So yeah, I had a lot of issues coming to terms with that as a teenager. Yeah, but the thing about the nose job is, that was it. I was done. I was like, yep. Surgery done, acceptance, radical acceptance. And so now I'm at the point I accept and love this body. Cuddly, I'm okay with that. I don't want to spend time on that anymore.
No.
I don't want to waste time on that anymore. Yes. Yeah. Creation, getting things, getting joy, fun. Yeah. We don't have enough fun, do we?
Yeah. No.
Yes, no. We're finding fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and for being a part of this interview and for talking about your creative life. It's been really great. I'm going to put links to all the things, but if you're tech interested and tech positive, check out the podcast. And if fantasy, check out the fantasy and follow social media because you're posting some of your art.
I'm going to make some representation sculpturally of AI robots. So I posted recently some paper clips cast in resin.
Yes, I saw that.
It's going to be. It's about the alignment problem of what if AI was told to make paper clips.
Yes.
And
Yes. That's the thing. It can't. It's only as good as the prompt that you
yeah.
but it's only as good as the prompt that you then manipulate further and you
Yeah.
do something with.
Well, thanks for having me, Amra, because it's really fun to talk to you about writing.
And we're going to continue this conversation on camera.
Indeed.
Thank
Cups
you.
of tea.
That's right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Amra's Armchair Anecdotes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more insights, stories, and inspiration from my armchair to yours. Remember, every story begins with a single word.